Okay, it's 6:02. I'm calling this meeting to order. The school committee may seek to convene open session and recess to executive session for discussion and/or action regarding those items of business exempt from open meetings under Rhode Island General Law 4246-4 and a discussion action negotiations Council 94, Rhode Island General Law 4246-5A2, and B, discussion action personnel job performance superintendent evaluation, Rhode Island General Law 4246-5A1. Individuals have been notified, including their right to have any discussion held in open session.
I'll make a motion to recess to executive session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That motion passes.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming. The school committee is still in executive session for a few more moments. As soon as they end executive session and come back in, we'll get started with student recognition. So thank you for your patience, and more importantly, thank you for being here and all the good deeds and exemplary behaviors and learning that you do that make you worthy of tonight's recognition. So thank you so much.
All right, good evening. We are calling this meeting to order at 7:05. So first we have a roll call vote. Stuart is here. All right. Brad Shear,
Here.
Paula Whitford, Kate Massonani,
Here.
Michelle Brousseau, James Restivo,
Here.
me, Carol Vetter, is here. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Do I have a motion to seal the minutes of the executive session?
I'll make a
Make a motion to seal the minutes of executive session.
second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
That motion passes. There were no votes taken in executive session. So first on the agenda is student recognition. So I will turn it over to Mr. Perdaza.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At this time, I would ask that the committee please join us in front here, and I will welcome to the podium first Principal of Matunic Elementary, Principal McGuire.
Hi, good evening. My name is Liz McGuire. I'm the principal at Matunic Elementary School. I'm very proud to be here to recognize our Matunic Safety Patrol for the month of February. We have Kai Smith, Sam Clarity, Bia Holt, Nod Taylor, and Lou Bianco. There you go. The Matunic Safety Patrol program is an initiative that aims to give our students a chance to demonstrate responsibility, leadership, and school pride while helping maintain a safe and respectful school environment. The Safety Patrol is a voluntary program, and students are selected based on their dependability, attitude towards others, scholastic standing, and good attendance. We look for students who embody the values of our school motto, Matunic Manta Rays, respect all others, yourself, and your surroundings. So the responsibilities. Students are selected for the Safety Patrol. They help uphold our school rules and ensure that the campus remains welcoming and a safe place for all students K through 5. Their duties occur before and after school hours, and they include attending a training, greeting students and adults politely each day, setting an example and modeling expected behaviors, monitoring hallways, common areas before and after school, supervising outside walkways and assisting with bus boarding, helping younger students in the primary grades as needed. Safety Patrol rotates to a new student group on a monthly basis, and it is based on an application process that the students have to submit. All of the selected students are up here for the month of February, but I definitely want to recognize all of our Matunic students that have volunteered for this program. And they also assist with other extra jobs, like possibly posting things around the building. They helped with our monthly assembly this month. And I'm really proud of their leadership and the example that they set for our school. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Great job. And next up on our recognitions, if Noah Berman, Noah Berman. Is Noah Berman here? Noah, come on up. Noah is being highlighted by Principal Rapport at Peacedale. And Principal Rapport describes Noah as an exemplar for what a safety ambassador should be. He is always willing to help support younger students around the school. He's regularly sacrificing lunch or recess time to support others. He is an academic leader and is a model for our PB, or positive behavioral intervention model. So a round of applause and thanks to Noah. And Aubrey Erickson here. Aubrey, also from Peacedale. Principal Rapport says consistently positive behavior and academic excellence. She is a role model for peers and is an excellent safety ambassador also. She has shown consistently excellent performance for her entire Peacedale Elementary School career. She is a model student and a friend to all. Congratulations. And last, but certainly not least, Thomas Richardson from South Kingstown High School. Thomas is a winner of the Projo Student of the Week. His teachers describe him and says he stands out as an intellectually curious young man, ready to learn for the sake of knowledge and incredibly accomplished in his studies. He excels with a rigorous academic schedule, sports, and after-school job with a quiet confidence that makes doing so look easy. Thomas is a member of the National Honor Society, the Spanish Honor Society, a member of the South Kingstown High School volleyball and cross-country teams, volunteers in the community, and works at both Yawgoo in the winter and Narragansett Surf Shop in the summer. He is a thoughtful, calming presence in class and outside of it. His contributions to South Kingstown High School and the South Kingstown community have been and will continue to be outstanding, thus earning him both the nomination and the victory for the Projo Student of the Week. Thank you and congratulations. Thank you, everyone. Again, thank you for being here this evening. You're welcome to stay and see local democracy in action. However, we also know that students have and parents have busy schedules. And so again, thank you for making South Kingstown Public Schools such a wonderful place to be. And again, congratulations to students and families alike. Yeah, what
Thank you all for coming tonight. And everybody, just wonderful children. Please keep up the good work.
Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you.
Right, we have public comment next.
I did, spill. Robert Chiaradio.
I'm sorry, but let me just read this before you begin. Public comment at the meeting shall last no longer than 30 minutes. Please introduce yourself, provide your address. Please note that no one individual may address a particular school committee, and we cannot comment. This is an opportunity to address the school committee, but it is not a time for a dialogue. But thank you for coming.
3 minutes, correct? Thank you. My name is Robert Caradillo. I'm from Westerly. I've addressed the committee before. Superintendent Pedraza, Chair Vitter, members of the committee. I emailed you in January and included a story which reaffirms what I have personally been saying for almost 2 years, as well as what I discussed with you when I met with you last July, that the attempted rewriting of Title IX by the Biden administration was illegal. Title IX was written to protect women against discrimination based on sex, not men who identify as women. Federal judge's ruling on January 9th invalidated this attempted hijacking. Title IX reverted back to its original intent from 1972, which is based on sex, not gender identity. President Trump reiterated the same in his executive order from January 20th and February 5th, which are now federal law. Some districts and RIDE may need to be reminded of the possibility of legal action should they not comply, and you may consider this that. Your district needs to do 2 things. First, immediately, if you haven't already, strike any reference to gender identity in your district's Title IX policy. I read it today. I didn't see any, but I could have missed it. Westerly, Barrington, North Kingstown, and others have already done this. And replace it with one word, sex. That's it. Any Title IX interpretation moving forward must be based on sex and not gender identity. Failure to do so would place the district in violation of Title IX and susceptible to legal action. Secondly, immediately remove the current transgender policy protocol from your website, as well as all other published areas, as it is invalid. Failure to do so would again place the district in violation of Title IX and in legal peril. RIDE Trans guidance also conflicts with Title IX, and it is also invalid. Students who are confused with their sexual identity will be covered, like everyone else, under your anti-bullying, anti-harassment policy. They are just not covered under Title IX unless they claim discrimination based on their biological sex. Pretty easy to understand. To be clear, however, no boys in girls' bathrooms and vice versa. No boys rooming with girls on overnight field trips. No mandated use of pronouns by teachers and staff. That's a First Amendment violation, which I told you about last time. No boys competing with girls in athletics. And no keeping secrets from parents regarding any social transitioning in school. Whether or not this district wants to be in compliance with Title IX is immaterial. You must comply with federal law and protect our girls. Those kids that are here tonight, that's why I do what I do. That's why I go to every school committee meeting in the state and talk, because these kids. Shame on you for letting this nonsense go on for so long and forcing others to comply with your untruthful, unlawful, unsafe, and sick obsession with gender identity. Those days are over. You must comply or face the consequences. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next up is the consent agenda.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
That motion passes. And now the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In tonight's report, we have 2 items. The first is one of our traditional ones, and that is personnel. The next item in the report will be an update on a RIDE initiative regarding telehealth, and that is referred to as Hazel Health. But first, personnel. We have extensions of leaves of absences, as well as a upcoming leave of absence. I would also like to take this opportunity to welcome Christine Mertens as a teaching assistant to the Peacedale community. Next slide, please. And, oh, thank you. One more, please. So Hazel Health actually came around or came up around the same time as the initiative here at the high school in terms of Khan Academy. However, because it's dealing obviously with health, online therapy, there are a lot more questions, or we had to delve into this. And we, as an administrative team, both in terms of district level and building level, we really wanted to make sure we gave this the time it deserved, as well as make sure, like any initiative, that we didn't jump and bite off more than we can chew. In a nutshell, Hazel Health is a telehealth platform that RIDE has purchased for any school district throughout the entire state. And if a district enters into that contract, from the date they enter into it, they have 1 year currently. So RIDE has purchased it for 1 year, but that year begins once you enter into the contract. We took our time because originally the thinking or the model that is often employed with Hazel Health is to allow for online telehealth sessions for therapy and counseling, but allows it or is promoted both either before school, but also during school or after school. Upon hearing this, again, wanting to make sure that, we're not usurping or going above and beyond what we're able to do, it was determined that basically in our operations that hosting therapy sessions, of which we are not a part of or taking part in or know what students are discussing, and then having students leave class, have an online session, and then return to class, really placed an undue burden as to, what is the emotional state that students would be either being called out of class for or be returning to class. And so we went back and forth a little bit with Hazel Health, and we did come to an agreement that this is a platform that we would be able to offer, even though we would not be offering it during the school day. So essentially what we've been able to come to an agreement on is that Hazel Health can become a tool in the toolbox for those who work with students and families, to offer families if they are in need of that support or are interested in learning more. So at Hazel Health, this is not an initiative to take away school psychologists, school social workers, nurses, the MTSS referral process. This is in no way, shape, or form looking to usurp any of those responsibilities. Again, if you were to look at Hazel Health online, South Kingstown School District, we would not be having any of these sessions take place during school hours or on school grounds. Again, it would be, however, another tool for our school-based personnel to offer parents and guardians who are in need. And there is absolutely no obligation for students and families to participate. Additionally, absolutely zero data is shared unless a parent is requesting access to this platform or looking to seek a referral for their own child. So we are not entering into a data sharing agreement that gives or that we push data to them and then say, oh, this person, you have it already. So no data has been given or will be given without parental consent ahead of time. Next slide, please. So for those who don't know, Hazel Health is an online healthcare provider focusing in on therapy and counseling sessions. If you are able to see some of those school districts that are on there, some are the size of the state of Rhode Island in terms of total population and total student body served. So Baltimore City Public Schools, Broward County Public Schools, Denver, all Des Moines public schools, all kind of stand out. But throughout or over the past few years, Hazel Health has interacted with over 5 million students across 170 school districts and again, 16 states. Next slide, please. So how does this program work? So generally, students are referred by a trained school staff or their guardian. For us, our school staff who would be able to help parents would be trained. However, they would then be making those referrals or that outreach to the parents themselves. They would not, the school faculty and staff would not be reaching out to Hazel Health in order to have them reach out to the student or the parents and guardians. So we would train our staff so that they know ultimately, as well as if there were a release for information. So if we needed to talk to therapists or counselors, that we would have the ability to do so if that consent were given. Enrollment, again, no data is turned over by the district and the agreement that we would have. Families complete the enrollment form and talk about their preference, talk about their home language, talk about their availability in order to schedule weekly therapy sessions. Then the student would attend those weekly therapy sessions. Although I took this screenshot, ultimately I should have deleted that school portion of it or blocked it out because this would be taking place again only at homes. So students access care from home via any internet connected device from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And then discharge and care coordination. So should additional resources be used or needed or a deeper level of counseling be deemed as necessary, Hazel Health makes all of those referrals moving forward, and it does not become the responsibility of the school district, but that's communicated. Again, we share information about that so that we can best support the students in school. But again, all of that information and subsequent care afterwards is communicated to the family. Next slide, please. One of the pieces that I think is not only in terms of access for those who may not have ubiquitous access to healthcare or have a tough time or need to wait for an appointment, is that this would help streamline that process, as well as breaking down a lot of the barriers, especially if there is a language barrier, or in terms of making sure to find a counselor that has the characteristics that's the family desires. So rather than going around to physical location, to try and find a therapist that, let's say reflects the family's values or reflects the culture or the language, that can all be taken care of ahead of time through Hazel Health. And again, every counselor that they have here is certified and is also certified whether that be directly in Rhode Island or through licensure agreements. So these are all certified therapists. Next slide. So to conclude, I'll go right back to the beginning. Again, this is a RIDE initiative. It is at no cost to the district. If we were to enter into this contract, it would be for the year, and we would have access and be able to utilize these services or refer these services. And the one piece that I left out, in as many cases, the most important is it is at no charge. So insurance information, if you have it, is given at that initial. But if there is no insurance, there is no cost to families. And so that is why I believe that this is a worthwhile initiative. I believe almost every other district is taking part in this. Those who are not that I've talked to, it's because they already have similar agreements with community health centers that are providing this service to families. Again, to reiterate, this is in no way, shape, or form taking the place of our school-based personnel. This will not do the formal or the advertised Hazel Health or the RIDE model where it would take place in school. That would not happen under this agreement in South Kingstown. Again, it would be something that school psychologists and our support staff can offer to parents and guardians, but not require. And again, is of no obligation for students or families to participate or cost to the district or to families. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions on this or any other element of my report.
So is that our policy or is that standard in terms of not taking place during school hours or on school grounds?
So that's our operational policy when we, because they will go, I believe as early as grade 2. Again, our school schedules, our ability to mid-year accommodate this model or a model of therapy, as well as react to in real time under the existing pressures, students who are in therapy or receiving counseling during school hours. And while I think good things will happen, the potential for unknowns to exist and to have students be in a emotional state that could distract both from their learning and from everyone else's. That is something that the principals and administrators agreed is not something that we could accommodate. However, we did believe that this is a tool for those in the community and students who may need it, that we shouldn't turn it away.
So as a follow-up on that, which I get that thinking, which makes sense. What about people who may not have access to Wi-Fi and iPads and may need this service?
Sure.
But
So in terms
Can't
of,
do that.
devices, Mr. Snow is here and we do provide devices. So we are still technically a one-to-one, we are still a one-to-one district. However, and for students who need to take devices home, they can. I don't know about if we put firewalls up or if we would need to do anything to allow those sessions to occur here, but they can occur if need be over a phone that folks have. But we do have, if need be, we do have some resources that we could outreach to families and provide, whether those be hotspots or devices that could go out to those families who are in need and or who could work with our social workers and community outreach coordinators.
that would be communicated to them that would be available.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
I know you mentioned Khan Academy, we know is, RIDE is signed up for 1 year, or maybe it was 18 months. Do we know that this is 1 year and it's done? Has RIDE indicated if there's a possibility of?
So when they said initially, right now, they did 1 year and they anticipated if enough districts signed up that they would then advocate for future funding, but that was dependent upon the amount of districts who were able to take part in this. So the initial indication, given the conversations at the superintendent's associations, is that I would expect to see continuation of this in RIDE's FY26. However, I haven't spoken to anybody about that.
I think it's great. Most in the professional world outside of schools and most school benefits include something like this typically in insurance benefits and wellness benefits. So I think it's great. I think it's awesome that no cost. It's basically like a wellness benefit, which I think is awesome. I love that it is to be taken home. It shouldn't be happening. Like, we have our protocols and we have our policies when it comes to our students' mental health. Things like online therapy, however, belongs in a household. And for in scenarios and situations where they may need our resources in order to utilize it at home, I think that's just one more way to maintain a connection in our students' households that need it. So I think it's a great opportunity, and I'm glad to see it.
Thank you.
So thank you.
If there are no other questions, I will entertain a motion to accept the superintendent's report.
Make a motion to accept the superintendent's report.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That motion passes. So that will bring us to the school committee business discussion on the Office of Teaching and Learning update. So we'll turn it over to Mr. Seeger.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good evening, Madam Chair, and members of the school committee, and all those in attendance and those watching from afar. It's a pleasure to be with you this evening to give you what is hopefully a brief overview of two topics in particular: survey works and RICAS. And with that, if we can get to the second slide, please. So just a overview here of the goal of tonight's presentation is really just to give you that brief preview / overview of both survey works and our RICAS test preparation efforts in the lead up to testing in April and May of this school year. And next slide, please. So we'll begin our conversation with something kind of hot off the presses here with our district communication, our survey works annual ride survey launch. And next slide, please. And as I move forward, please at any time, if you need me to clarify any points, please pause and ask away. But just a little bit about survey works. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with survey works is an annual ride survey that goes out to a variety of different stakeholders in the community across Rhode Island. And that would include students, families, faculty, support staff, and administrators. And that's been in place since actually the spring of 2017. So as we talk a little bit about, the purpose of survey works, as you see here on the slide, there's a longitudinal data set that allows us to track some trends around a variety of topics related to perceptions around our effectiveness at the individual school level and across the district. So survey works as an oft cited source of data for school improvement teams, for school improvement efforts. And is alive and well in various and sundry conversations. Next slide, please. So as noted, there are 5 different surveys. Actually, as I had mentioned, hot off the presses this afternoon, we had a formal launch in a district communication related to our family survey, which, we are certainly on the hunt to get to that 100% participation mark. That is a lofty goal, but we certainly have high expectations of ourselves, and we would love to hear as much feedback as possible from families in particular. Whenever we look at a data set such as survey works, that the number of respondents is critical when we are seeking to make data informed decisions related to those survey topics. The more feedback, the better. So this is an additional, imploring of our members of the community to please check your email and please, take the survey and provide that feedback for us. Next slide, please. So here's a quick snapshot of our Survey Works timeline. As noted, yesterday was kind of our, informal kickoff with our communication happening today. And you can see, now through the end of March, we'll be engaged in each of those 5 surveys. And the turnaround time for those results, puts us into later spring in May and June. So school is still in session when we'll be able to get an early look at those survey results. And then certainly that's just part of the ongoing efforts related to leveraging this survey data for school improvement planning purposes, and again, conversation pieces for a variety of different school and district-based teams. Next slide, please. So you might be asking, what's on the survey? What types of questions do they ask? And I would encourage you, if you're curious, to please follow the links that are provided here in the slides. And for those of you who are following along at home, in board docs, we do have a PDF document with live links. So you're able to access some demos of each of the surveys noted there to get a sense of the types of questions that appear. There are also archived records from all the way back to 2017 to provide you a snapshot of, where we as a community have fallen in each of the categories. So, next slide, please. And before moving on to topic 2, I'll just pause and entertain any questions related to Survey Works, if any.
I have a question about, so we received, I believe that our full committee received the Survey Works prompt. I no longer have children in the district, so I did not participate in the survey. However, my question is, if someone were to share that publicly and be like, hey, community at large, because it is anonymous, can people outside of the families who have students in our district, can they take it's not like locked down to SKSD emails, it can be spread out, right?
That is correct. So the data, although invaluable for us, we do always view it through that lens of, anybody anywhere with an internet connection can submit a survey to the community based survey.
But the ideal is we want our families. We don't want
correct
general person living on Main Street who does not have children in our school buildings taking the survey. We want our families.
That is correct. So we're looking for families with students actively, engaged and enrolled in the district, I should say.
Thank you.
So thank you. Excellent question. All right, and moving on to topic 2 here, where the RICAS state assessments coming up, and we'll go to the next slide, please. So here's the brief overview of our testing schedule. It's kind of loosely outlined here of when we are testing, given that it varies by school, by specific school schedules. But we will be engaged in testing during the state assigned window. We generally test, per my understanding, later in the window to allow for more instructional opportunities leading up to the actual assessments. And I just put some preliminary details in here about the RICAS assessments. It's 2 different assessments per test for ELA and math, and they're taken on 2 separate days. And they are rather lengthy. As you can see, for ELA, you have 2 to 2.5 hours per session. Although the test is not timed, that is generally the time that it takes for most students to complete the assessments. But there are opportunities for students to continue testing up through dismissal of testing day. Next slide, please. And here you can see an overview of our RICAS testing timeline. Mr. Pedraza, Mr. Lonergan, and myself have been crafting a communication plan for families in the lead up to ELA testing and to math testing in May. And that will include some regular correspondence with families with some sample test questions that Mr. Lonergan has very creatively kind of designed a way to push that out to families and hopefully engage families and, with children and some conversations around a sample test item and then be rerouted back to a district page for some more interactive work with those sample questions. So, kudos to Mr. Lonergan and to Mr. Pedraza for their input in that. So be on the lookout in early March for some correspondence related to that. So one point I wanted to make here is as eager as we are to get our RICAS results at the end of testing typically in mid-May, as we know, the turnaround time for seeing those results puts us into the next school year, which is, beyond that window generally of the formulation of school improvement plans, which are due at the start of the summer. But having said that, we are certainly in the habit of looking at those results and then re-engaging through our school improvement teams and school improvement planning processes around, what do we do, with these latest results and how do we, adjust where adjustment is needed. Next slide, please. And just for a little bit of fun, we put a test question up here that may or may not be included in one of Mr. Lonergan's forthcoming correspondences, but I won't put anyone on the spot and ask for guesses here for these questions. But one of the reasons why I chose this question was, it gives another snapshot around, it's not a simple single question where it's A, B, C, or D. These are multifaceted questions that involve, multiple questions baked into one that involve a number of different addressed Common Core state standards and understandings that reflect that. So, there's again, a little bit of patience. You might see this again. So, and next slide, please. And for those of you who are intrigued by the prospect of seeing what types of questions students are engaged in for both ELA and math, there's a series of links here that are live on the PDF as well as the slide deck. You can take a look at some of the practice tests. Currently, we are transitioning, we as a state, to a new testing portal. So we are awaiting the opportunity for the student practice test portal to go live. And once we have that ability, we will be practicing that computer-based test across grades 3 to 8. But in the meantime, we still have access to the previous practice tests from Pearson. So, and with that, next slide, please. Again, I'll pause to entertain any questions related to RICAS, or if another survey works question came to mind, or anything else that you need answered, I'm happy to address. And if there are no questions, please reach out. If one comes to mind on your drive home or, whenever. So thank you. Did you want the answer key?
No, I did it already. So I do have a couple of questions, Mr. Seeger. On the survey works, surveys, do you have a guess or information about how long these parent and family and community surveys take to complete?
Yes, excellent question. So in our future correspondence, we're going to take some of the flyer materials that RIDE has provided that give a snapshot related to what you need to engage in the survey. One of the items in those screenshots is like 20 minutes of your time. Having taken the survey as a building administrator, as a parent, I can tell you it generally takes much less than 20 minutes. I would say anywhere from, approximately 10 minutes to engage in that. But again, some of those questions might be more thought-provoking for the participant, but generally in that ballpark of 10 to 20 minutes.
Because back in the dark ages, when we used to do them pencil and paper, they came out to like 21, 23 pages. So there was no 20 minutes.
Yeah.
The other thing that concerns me is the RICAS testing, that the windows that are open, are advised by RICAS. But, and I can't speak to the ELA test, I can only speak to the math test. When I was testing coordinator, we had a lot of students who would not complete the test in the allotted time. And they were supposed to be allowed to continue until they finished the test. But we had a lot of pushback that, no, Johnny belongs in my class now. You can't, you had him for 2 hours for testing. You can't still have him. That kind of stuff, and kids being discouraged from putting in more time. And even the best students in math, in my opinion, sometimes take longer than the average bear to take a test.
So I'm glad that you brought this topic up, because when, we engage in the required test administrator and test coordinator training, the point is made very clear that as much time as students need, if they are productively working, that we are compelled to afford that additional time up to dismissal or just after, if a student is just, completing. So, I can say I'm looking forward to the first iteration of seeing how RICAS testing, the complexion of that here in SK. What I can say is, from what I understand, those test security regulations and the test timing are followed based on the training. I can say, in my former life as a building principal, I know that it was something that we wanted to get, and I think that's reflected here as well. The best measure of what students know and are able to do. And to your point, there are students who, need to go beyond the 2 to 2.5 hours to engage in a thoughtful writing piece, and for the mathematics piece to work thoughtfully through. And we will certainly make sure that we afford all the opportunities and encourage that continued working, and make sure that our buildings are structured to allow for that, for students to continue to engage without feeling any, pressure to not. I appreciate the point.
Thomas, this is the last one. With the, they're taking the tests on the computers. And students that I interact with, they get this idea in their head that they're taking it on the computer, so they shouldn't have to write anything down. So my response to that is, I need to write something down to do that. And so if I need to write it down to do that, I would think kind of you would need to do that. So are we working with our young people to get them used to that idea? Because I've talked to a couple of middle schoolers, not from our district, from a different district, and they don't write anything down when they do their math online in their regular classroom. And so we had the discussion about how poor that is for study strategies. They took it home to their parents.
What I can assure you is that we strongly encourage universally the use of, scratch paper when we are taking assessments. in a computer-based platform. And I know that in the practice tests, that is something that we are able to work through with kids and build that muscle memory that once you have your scratch paper and then you have your actual planned answer. And in many of the test questions, there's actually an expectation that you show your work, inside of the testing platform as well. And I will say in past iterations of the test administrator manual, as well as the script that is read to students on the day of testing, there's frequent expectation setting regarding the use of scratch paper. And again, it should be something that is embedded in our practice and again, muscle memory, just kind of an automatic piece. So I know that in the conversations I've had with our district coordinators, with building principals, with coaches here in the district, that is something that we are, my understanding has been in past practice and will certainly continue this year. So I appreciate that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Seeger.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Seeger? All right, thank you so much. All right, so we will move on to B, discussion action review of the school year 2025-26 annual calendar, the 2 draft versions. So I will turn that over to Mr. Pedraza.
So these are the 2 drafts that we've seen it, I believe it was 2 meetings ago. What I'm looking for direction from the committee or to take action or to give me a directive in terms of crafting a final version of a school calendar that is a version or a hybrid of these 2 schedules, or excuse me, 2 calendars. Draft 1 contemplates, or both versions contemplate starting school for students after Labor Day, as well as the maintaining of the traditional vacations. The difference between the 2 is that draft 1 has no school days off for religious holidays, while draft 2 contemplates taking off school or having school not held for both, Yom Kippur, El Fajr in March, and Good Friday. So in terms of, you'll see October 2nd, March 20th, and April 3rd as being highlighted in yellow in version 2. If that version were to be one that we would be working off of, or that I would be crafting or looking to craft next year's calendar, that would put us out once again on June 18th. If we were to not take those holidays off from school, but yet we would still recognize that we would not hold evening activities. We would again extend all of the existing holiday observances that in terms of accommodations for families and for students that are highlighted there. That would put the last school day, barring inclement weather or emergency closures, at June 16th. So again, I'm just looking for some sort of direction as to what the committee's appetite is in terms of a potential final version to come before this committee.
Do you want to just start at the end and everybody have a say? Okay, so Stuart, you want to start?
Version 2. That's all I need to say.
I'll agree with Stuart that I prefer version 2. I'm concerned about where the year ends because one snow day puts us into another week. Which is not ideal. I just want to point out that I think both January and February, the dates underneath the calendars don't match the highlighted dates. I think those They just need to be adjusted. Yeah, I would have the same preference for the second version.
I agree. I think we should go with the second version as well. I'd like us to go back to honoring different cultures, holidays, or and I think this is a great way to start that. I mean, I heard concerned about the end of the school year. Not much. I mean, I don't really, it's not a big concern to me. I think that we are still looking at a earlier end date than we have in the past without those honoring those holidays. So I would like to go with version 2.
I have a question before I give my opinion. Have either of these, both of these been run past the bargaining unit? And did they have a preference?
In terms of, I've had conversations with both leadership as well as the survey data. In terms of, you know, the survey data came out in terms of the getting out of school was preferred. I did have conversations with our teacher union leadership with concerns about on Good Friday, as there've been prior districts or that couldn't make good on that, but they believed that because the membership was given voice to that and they had put that as a priority, that they were confident that we would be able to open schools.
My recollection is the year that we abruptly didn't have school on Good Friday was a little bit different than planning it out ahead of time. So I appreciate, and I ask that because it is their working calendar. That said, the majority of the people impacted are our families. And most families have to find childcare for the religious holidays because most occupations do not have all these days off. So I personally would lean towards version 1 because it aligns more with actual federal holidays, where that aligns with most working families' schedules already. But again, that's just my personal perspective. So thank you.
I have to go with version 2. I like the idea of, you know, no religious holidays, but we lived through it once. And what happened is everybody agreed to it when the discussion came up in you know, February or whatever month it came up. And then as Ms. Massinanti said, when we approached Good Friday, we had all these people that were taking the day off and there weren't enough people to run the district. And we did have to abruptly say, oh, okay, we're not going to have school on Good Friday. And that left a very, in my opinion, what I heard at that time from the community, that left a very bad, negative vibe in the community because, okay, now you're in April and you're giving the Good Friday holiday, but we did not have the other religious holidays because those dates had already passed. So I would have to go with version 2. Thank you.
My preference is version 1, simply because we are a secular institution and it is not, you know, we're going down the road of honoring this religion, that religion, but there are other religions we're not honoring also. So I feel like that's probably a little bit alarmist to keep going down that road, but I think the version 1 is my preference because we get out on the 16th of June rather than the 18th of June with potential of a snow day pushing us or multiple snow days pushing us into the next week. I don't know that we're going to see more than 2 snow days in a given winter, in the near future. We only have 1 this year, so, and certainly probably not going to have another one. Otherwise, I suppose we could. Knock on wood, right? But that being said, I mean, I think the version 1 is a much more equitable calendar. It's just, this is, we're honoring the federal holidays, and as a secular institution, I think that's what we need to do.
So originally I had the same concerns that Michelle did, but I think what's different this time is that the teachers came forward and said, we want the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. And now they're getting that, where that wasn't on the table the last time that they gave up Good Friday. So I think it's different. I really feel like those days are really important to our teachers, and that means something to me. I also think that being on the 16th instead of the 18th is better, because, we live in New England. So I prefer version 1 also.
I just want to say one other thing. We are a secular institution, but we're not considering starting our break on December 30th, right? We would never do that. We call it a holiday break and we just don't name the holiday. So we're celebrating a religious holiday when we close school on December 24th and 25th. We just didn't say which one it is. So it's the observance of a religious holiday. It just happens to be the dominant religion in the community. And so we just took the label off it. So it makes me uncomfortable to pretend that we're not closing for religious holiday just because that one happens to be a federal holiday, because we really are.
So in theory, I agree with you, but it is a federal holiday. So I mean, that's really where I lean towards that. If it wasn't a federal holiday, then I'd be all for you, because a lot of people celebrate Christmas, but in my household, it's not about religion. It's literally about Santa.
And nobody
So,
would, I know nobody would show up, right?
Yeah.
No, right,
Yeah,
nobody
so
would
I
show
mean,
up.
in theory, I agree with you, but I think to kind of James's point is, if we have the standard of following the federal holidays, that kind of is, but I hear you.
And I do want to chime in, because in terms of, there is a difference, and thank you, Chair Vetter, for bringing that out, is that on draft 1, the 26th is of November. So that recess would mirror this year's, whereas in version 2, it is in order to be out before Juneteenth. That is not the case.
I think the best way to proceed is for somebody to make a motion, and we will vote on that motion and see which passes. So I will leave it to somebody to make a motion.
Make a motion to approve the school year 2025-2026 annual calendar version 1.
Do I have a second?
Second,
I would, if I could, it would be a motion to direct me to create a school calendar based off of version 1, not to accept this as the calendar.
Correct. There's other
Make a
kindergarten
motion.
registration and
Yep.
stuff. Yeah.
I will
Okay.
make a motion to direct Superintendent Pedraza to make a school year calendar for 2025-2026 annual calendar based on draft 1.
second,
All right. We have a motion and a second. We're going to do a roll call vote. Stuart Lander,
Nay.
No.
Brad.
Oh, no.
Brad Shear, Paula Whitford,
Yay.
Kate Massinani, Michelle Brousseau,
aye.
James Festivo,
Aye.
and myself, aye. So that motion passes.
Thank you.
All right, we will move on to the item C, discussion action policy number 5435, the arrest disclosure policy. This is the second read. So James?
Thank you, Chair Better. This came up to a first read at our last session. I don't recall any substantial feedback of making any changes, so this is coming to us again as a second read. If I was mistaken in that, please, let me know. We can take notes and maybe go back to the drawing board and write up, but as it is a second read, as presented, we would accept this policy with a simple majority vote and proceed from there. So I'll take any questions.
I have a question and I want to apologize because I did not give you written feedback on this and I had intended to, it's more a matter of, so we have the policy written out as here where a faculty staff member has to disclose within 5 calendar days of any arrest, indictment, conviction, so forth. There's no corrective action if they fail to do so as part of this policy. And is that intentionally left out? Is that standard protocol? Or is that just happen to be missing? Like,
That is intentional because there are other policies that derive from following the handbook, and following the policies that we have on the books. There are disciplinary measures that are related to not following policy in general. So we did discuss this in the subcommittee level, and it did not seem appropriate to have a specific corrective action or disciplinary measure in this particular policy because we do have a broader disciplinary action to cover violations of policies in general.
thank you.
And based off of our last conversation regarding this, I remember that, in terms of past when does this policy go into effect? Is that, if something happened last week, what would folks be there? So, I did have a discussion with Mr. Hennius about this, and he did say that we could put in a clause or the committee could add in a clause, any new employee required to provide the school department with notice of any prior arrests and or convictions. Current employees are required to notify the school department of any prior or current arrest convictions within 24 hours of its incurrence, in which we would then email out the policy to folks. And then if it was the appetite to learn about anything that's happened this year or in years prior, that is a clause that could be added. That in terms of that line of questioning that occurred with this policy.
So would editing it now require us to go back to, this is a second read, so we'd have to go back, we'd have to come back for a third read.
You could do it any number of ways. You could either do, vote to not pass this now, and then it would come back in a different iteration. If the subcommittee could send it back as a different iteration. You could vote to approve this with language to be added, specific language to be added. I don't love that because there's a lot of nuance in words. So I think we understand what you're driving at, or you could just simply table this and then take it up at your next meeting. Obviously with the understanding that the feedback given, you can change the actual policy.
Correct. Yeah, that'd be my preference to not amend it as is unless it goes back to have a discussion. Because I think if we start putting that kind of policy in place, I think there's been a couple of mentions of have bargaining units seen this. I think Mr. Sherry asked that at the last read. Were there bargaining units involved? I have to go back because there was a bargaining unit member who's a member of the subcommittee, but she was not present at the meeting where we discussed this. So although we do have it in the public, we do have an opportunity for them to come and submit their comments or submit emails, however they want to communicate. I think if we want to add that kind of language in it, that you have 24, 48, whatever it is, number of hours after this goes into effect, I would prefer to have a broader discussion about that and more input before we decide to put something like that in place.
I would think you'd need to have a broader discussion because the moment it goes into place, if somebody has an arrest or any of the listed that was more than 5 calendar days away, they're automatically in violation of the policy. So it's a pretty odd, to me, it's an odd thing and not to, if it happened yesterday, okay, they have 4 days. Okay, but if it happened 5 years ago, or if it happened 2 weeks ago, they're already in violation because the policy didn't exist. So I guess that's the only, it would have to be a broader conversation. And to me, I don't know.
No, that's a good point. I read it as like from the day it goes into effect forward. So if there's like we approve it tonight, there's an arrest later tonight. Now they're on the clock for the 5 days. Something happened yesterday. In theory, it makes sense that it would fall in this policy, but I don't think it would. But there's nothing saying that specifically. So I don't know from a legal perspective if that's required.
Yeah, I would think it would be prospective. It doesn't reference, if the language doesn't reference, you know, events that happened in the past, and I would submit that they would not be part of this. So what you would do, what this as, you know, it just in just general contract interpretation, whenever you're reading the words as written, and that is from the date, you know, basically from the date passage you move forward. I mean, again, like with Attorney Henny, what Andrew said, you can certainly tweak it to include prior arrests. And I would be careful with that, though. I mean, first
point is, I don't think that would, well, yes, in theory, I would like to know the information, but in practice, it's like, it's a pretty broad life prior to the policy going into place.
I mean, the policy subcommittee certainly has its reasons for doing this, of which I'm not privy, but I would think that it's to address immediate issues that you have, something that happened years ago. I mean, that might be water under the bridge, it might not, but I mean, you then all of a sudden you're delving into, I just think legally, I have some hesitation to do that, but again, Andrew certainly has his own opinion.
It was done again in response to, hey, what could it be done, or how far could it go back? To go back is our obligation to report to RIDE in terms of things that we are supposed to know about, as well as now moving forward, making sure that, again, students are safe, able to be engaged, and we're future focused, so that immediacy now of knowing about from today on and making sure. So I have confidence in the safety piece of what's been done and what's currently being done. This would help enhance that, as well as our obligation in terms of certification and reporting. So I'm confident, I'm comfortable with it as it is. However, in response to those who said, okay, we had talk about, well, what about universal background checks, or having those things again? If there was appetite for it, here's some language. Obviously, it muddies the waters a lot and is not something that, I would want to get in the way of us, get in the way of what's already in existence and what our needs are, as well as, should an event happen, having this in place that we are then given notice of and are not finding out via social media or or another action need to go through. And to the larger point too, is I'd rather deal with the current and as well as the future, and then not be inundated by something that may have happened 26 years ago that might not be a criminal offense anymore, but yet now our building administrators are faced with things that we created a problem where there wasn't one.
I would think that it doesn't specifically say it's retroactive would mean it's not.
The conversation more was, should it be, right? And should it go back to policy to get that verbiage? I personally don't see, I see value in it, but at the same time, I don't.
I think it's a can of worms. We don't.
Exactly. So,
Let's just, yeah.
because it is a second read, and we can obviously have more discussion on it after a motion. I would like to make an emotion to accept the arrest disclosure policy as presented.
Second,
Okay, we have a second, a motion and a second, so we'll open it up for further discussion. All right, seeing no further discussion. All in favor?
I,
Aye.
aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. All right, and the last thing on the agenda is discussion of the school building committee update. So we'll turn it to Kate.
So there's been actually quite a lot going on with the school building committee. We're really in an exciting place right now. We've gone into the design development phase, and at our last school building committee business meeting on Thursday, we had a new presentation with a new updated design that incorporated all of the changes that took place in the value engineering and schematic design process. So they put pen to paper to demonstrate what it will look like without the walking track, with moving the fitness room from the second floor down to the first floor, keeping the auditorium in full. No, one of the SLAM architects, one of the kind of, I don't know what technical term, like managing partner or whatever, he's a little bit higher up in their hierarchy, took over the design, the drawing, and he was actually able to keep the auditorium with the balcony and all the features as is. And he made some tweaks around, like the hallways and things of that nature, was able to better create the flow from moving, just for example, the theater creations from the CTE, the path to moving them into the auditorium was to take them outside and bring them back in. That is less than ideal. And so they were able to make that new route being on the inside by widening hallways. And he was actually able to find more cost savings. So there was a lot of really exciting changes / no changes, because he was able to find cost savings in different outlets. Another example, and I would like to also just kind of caveat, we are going to put a link to the drawings for people to be able to look at and zoom in on. That is coming. But the initial drawing had the academic tower was a single tower that was 3 stories and everything else was 2, where they actually expanded the 3-story academic into the main section of the building so that our science teachers could cluster all the rooms were able to be grouped together, and it met all their needs. And he was again able to cost contain during that process as well. So super exciting. There is some, obviously everybody, I'm pretty sure everybody here is privy to the scheduled discrepancies and nuances that has been in discussion at the town council. The project team, Left Field, Studio Jade, SLAM, Gilbane, everybody's working really hard to also now schedule contain. And we are working hard, very hard, and putting pressure on all the right pressure points to try to reclaim some of that schedule so we can look at a closer to September completion date. The biggest problem that we're faced with is when this completion date hits. Let's pretend it's August 31st. Are we going to move an entire school building between August 31st and Labor Day, move all of our programming, all of our faculty, all of our maintenance, all of our everything in 4 days over Labor Day? What we're looking for is if they're able to schedule contain and it's end of July completion date, then that's a reasonable move-in flow. If it's an end of August or beginning of September, the building will be complete, and a plan, a logical, thoughtful, productive, educationally sound plan could be then mapped out to have our programs move to the new building so that the kids aren't starting in one school and then a month later moving to another school and the teachers aren't having to go through that pressure. So there's a lot of thoughtful conversation going on our school building committee. We have obviously Superintendent Pedraza, who has been part of a build. We have Bob Littlefield, who has been part of a build. And we have Chip and we have Terry, who have, they've been in our schools and in various schools for a long time. So they're really putting a lot of thought and planning into what that will look like. So while there may be a political push to have us open on the first day of the school year in 2027 in a brand new building, our concern has always been, will always be our educational program and the impact on our faculty and our children. So we are being very thoughtful about all of that. So things got a little contentious at one point and people were kind of getting like frustrated, but I keep leaning back to this is so exciting. And when you get to see the new design, if you didn't get a chance to watch the video on Thursday and actually like zoom in and see the drawings, which it was probably hard to see, it is really exciting to see what's coming and to know that at some point between 2027 and the beginning of 2028, our kids are going to have an incredible building and it's going to be in the epicenter of our community. And fingers crossed, we're going to have all the funding to do all the programming that we want. It's definitely very exciting. And I look forward to having you all be able to see up close and personal those design drawings. I would like to maybe in an upcoming meeting here, have the team come and actually present to our group and allow our full body to be able to ask questions that I may not think is super important to touch on, but you all may think is. So that's pretty much it at this point. Like I said, still cost containing, push for schedule containment, and just a lot of excitement happening and really, really nice meetings are starting to come with our project consultants with their educational experts are meeting with our educational experts and our teachers and our faculty to make sure everybody's needs are being met. So it's pretty exciting time right now. Happy to answer anybody's question if I can.
Okay. First of all, thank you for your positivity, your incredible energy into this whole thing. Yeah, there's always gonna, I don't know any project that's ever been done on time. It would have been nice that this is gonna be done on time. But, so I understand the discontentment of some of the feedback I've heard from people, but I do know everybody's working rigorously. That's a big word for me. Anyway, so I had the opportunity to meet with Ryan at the high school the other day about the auditorium and the space. And there were two things that came up. One had to do with storage. And so is he happy about that now?
So the interesting thing about it is they're having, he's reached out to myself as well, and I've pointed him back to Chip because Chip is the liaison between our group and the architect and design team. They are working hard on that and making sure Ryan is getting what he needs within reason. Needs, not wants, right? But marrying the two, because that is a very pivotal component for our district. They are having, if I'm not mistaken, 2 meetings coming up in the first couple of weeks of March. So Ryan will be working directly with and sitting down with our project consultants, with their theater storage experts, and be able to really hash all the details of that out.
Yeah. Well, that's good, because that was my recommendation to him, was to get to you as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
So the second part was, and clarify for me when you were talking about the CTE and where that, because I know that there was a safety issue relative to what is being done today in terms of the auditorium versus where things are being built and kids moving things through the school, breaking pieces apart where it's got to go. So is where the CTE building of things now closer to where the auditorium is so that there's less potential for safety issues?
Yeah, it's right next door.
It is.
It's right next door. And like I said, in the original design of the new building, they're situated next to each other, but the original design, the hallways were too small and the doorways were too small. And so in theory, all the set equipment would have to go outside and then come back inside where this new gentleman, Mark Rhodes, he's been able to rearrange that path, widen the hallways. And so that the large pieces would be able to come right out of the CTE space into a larger hallway and move into the auditorium without having to go outside, without fear of going around corners or taking things apart and putting them back together. I think, so that's the current estimated designs, and they were very excited about that part. The architects were very excited to be able to share that information with us. Yep.
So first of all, I would like to thank Ms. Massananti and every member of the school building committee for the work that they've put in. But secondly, being the person that has sat on this school committee since the dinosaurs roamed the earth, I can't count how many iterations of a new high school I have lived through. And I was at the building committee meeting on Thursday night, and literally it took every ounce of my self-control not to dance down the aisle in town council chambers. I was so excited to see those drawings, honest to God. It was just made me realize why I'm on this committee. It was phenomenal. Thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Beasley's not in the house, but I do know he's probably watching. He was very excited. He had a big smile on his face and he was extremely excited. So that was another little feather in our cap. I want to go on record to make sure that everybody understands that, and I know this body understands, this is a major project. It's like a major project. $150 million project, a very complicated school facilities project. We're, trying to get, I like to use the example of sometimes it's a project to get up in the morning out of bed and to work. And many times we're late at that, right? So, or if you have kids and you need to get their shoes on their feet, get them in the car and get them to dance class. And oftentimes kids are in the car, their shoes are not on, they're kicking and screaming, and you're dragging them into dance class late. So when you're looking at a $150 million major project with so many moving parts, and now add to it what's happening at the federal level, unknowns with, the prices of things, the supply and demand of things, the whole 9 yards. There's going to be schedule deviations, but we're in a design mode where everything is an estimation. We're doing our due diligence. And I just want to make it loud and clear that the project team that we are working with they are absolutely in it to win it with us. They are so personally invested, professionally invested. I feel like I can speak for the full school building committee when I say we have the utmost faith in Left Field, Studio Jade, Slam Collaborative, and Gilbane, and all their subcontractors that they're working with. They're wonderful. I can pick them up the phone right now and call any one of them, from their principal manager all the way down, and they will answer the phone. They're an incredible group of people to work with. I'll start back with Phil Conti, who came in when no one else would touch us. And they put in the work. They're at every town council meeting with me. They are at every school building committee meeting. They come to our our functions. They're at our open houses. They talk to our community members. Chris Spiegel walked the streets many days, making sure people were getting information when he needed to. I just want to make sure that the public understands that this group, we trust them, and they are putting in the work, and they have our full support as a school building committee. And I just want to make sure that that is out there on public record for people to hear loud and clear.
Thank you, Kate. Job well done to you, the school committee, and all of our stakeholders.
And thank you, Kate. Having watched the process, I share your positive assessment of the team that's working on this project. And I do see that they are committed. I know, I know, thinking back to the SK 300 parade, I think Phil put together a whole schematic for the design of what the school is going to look like, and that he didn't have to do that. He didn't have to, but he did because he believed in this project and believed in us, and not many people did. I know a lot. No, they were a hot potato and they took it and they ran with it. And, you know, I do give a lot of kudos and big shout out to the team. And I'm glad to see the process is going the way it's going. I do hope we can still meet a opening in September, but 27. But I mean, hey, it's a big project. Like you said, it's a big project. And I think we're shepherding it through the process as best we can. It sounds like town council, listening to the meeting last night, they're on board with whatever permitting processes they need to expedite. I hope they would hold true to that and expedite those things. I think they will. And so we'll hopefully get this done and as quickly and as, you know, assuredly as possible with good quality and have a good building for our students from 2027 going forward. So just I also want to put that on record.
So I just can't thank the school building committee enough. All of you guys have done a great job. And I know it's not an easy job. It's huge. And things are going to come up, and a timeline slipping. It's not the end of the world. There are plenty of things worse than that out there, as we well know. Just to put a little perspective on it. But I do think that having the team, the architects, the planners come in and give us that presentation would be wonderful. I would really like to do that. So we'll try to get that scheduled. If we can work with them on when they're available, that would be great. So, but that's all I just wanted to say. Thank you guys, all of you. And with that, I guess we can have a motion to adjourn.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
All right, we're adjourned.
I'll get you anyway.